Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I guess this is actually the last episode of the year. I don't know whether that means anything or not, but I'm super excited to have Ryan and Jason with Leisure Care. Before we get into our conversation, I just want to say thanks so much for watching Foresight TV. I'm so glad you're joining us for this broadcast. At Foresight, we are committed to improving the lives of people who live and work in senior living. And so to that end, we would love to hear about what you're doing to improve the lives of residents and team members, kind of like this conversation that we're going to have today. And we'd also love to hear from you about things that we should be talking about. Are there topics and issues that we're maybe not tackling that we should be? So in addition to Foresight TV, we put out all kinds of great leadership content. We have 30 posts a month or so on LinkedIn. We've got the Foresight Podcast, Tech Tuesday. And perhaps the most impactful thing we do is the Foresight website, where we publish new leadership content every day. It is free. It's easy to subscribe to. You can see the QR code. All you have to do is scan that, put your email in, your name, and you're good to go. There's also a link in the chat that you can click on to sign up. And lastly, before we get started in our conversation today, I just want to say I appreciate your passion for improving the lives of older people and the team members who work in your organization. And with that, let's get started. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Jason, Ryan, I'm really pumped up to have you guys on the last show of the year. I think this is an appropriate conversation to have about how the industry is evolving and changing, where the opportunities are. And let's actually start. I'm going to turn to you, Ryan, because you're the one who I started with to get this set up. We had conversation at the Nick Fall, which resulted in this. So let's start with you, Ryan, a little bit about who you are, a little bit about Leisure Care, and then I'm going to let you maybe introduce Jason, and we'll jump into the conversation. Are we frozen? Oh, there you are.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having us on, Steve. Excited to be here. And we have been around for nearly 50 years. We're a hospitality-based senior housing company. We really cover the full gamut of senior housing. They're definitely focused a little bit more on the independent side. We've got 3,000 employees.
So Ryan, I'm going to stop you here. We're having terrible connectivity issues. And so I'm thinking maybe it might be easier for you to log out and log back on, and I'm going to pick on Jason in the meantime, if we can do that. Everything worked fine before we started, but this stuff happens sometimes. So Jason, welcome, and let's talk a little bit about your role at Leisure Care, and maybe you can fill in some of the blanks on Leisure Care.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Jason Teisling. I'm the VP of Innovation, formerly VP of IT. So came from a technology background. Started definitely outside kind of the senior housing industry a little bit. I worked in Las Vegas at the Venetian Casino and at the airport for a while. And kind of what brought me to the industry was just kind of needing some purpose, right? Some being able to see the impact of what we do, and especially in the IT industry for what I was doing. You're oftentimes behind a computer screen and you're not really seeing a lot of impact. So, when I met with Leisure Care the first time, I could really see the passion and the family environment and just their passion for what they do. And it really intrigued me to kind of enter into this industry and start with Leisure Care. And that was about 12 years ago. So I've been here ever since. So it's been a good journey.
And Ryan, let's see how we're doing here with our connection.
All right. Yeah, hopefully that's better. Does that sound better?
It's still pretty choppy. I hate to say. Let me actually, I'm going to start. Well, I'm going to throw this question to both of you. Ryan, we'll try you. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to Jason and maybe we can work behind the scenes on this connection. But let's talk a little bit. You talked a little bit about Leisure Care as being sort of a hospitality based company. And I'd love to hear what that means in your mind, and hospitality as opposed to what? Ryan, maybe?
President.
Jason?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think
it's going to be you and me, Jason.
Yeah, maybe. So, and I'm definitely, IT is not the first thing you think of when you think about hospitality, right? But
yeah,
same vein. I grew up. My wife has worked in hospitality, event planning, casinos, hotels, restaurants. Her whole life. So I've learned a lot from her on customer service and those kind of things. So I think that's really where we want to set ourselves apart is with that experience that we give to our residents and their families and our staff, and just making sure that's the the most impactful thing that we can do. And that's kind of the interesting thing we've done with my position and Ryan and our team, setting up a specific experience team and having a VP of innovation to really focus on, what needs to happen next and where we need to go and how we can provide the best experience we can.
So let's talk a little bit about what innovation in senior living actually means and what that role is for you.
Yeah. I really, spending the last 11 years in the IT side of the industry, I wanted to kind of start thinking a little higher level, thinking outside the box a little bit. And also, exactly what does innovation mean? And to me, innovation isn't just technology, right? It's looking at the bigger picture. It's taking each department, each program, each initiative that we're doing and trying to figure out if we can do it differently, if we can do it better, what we can do to be more efficient, be more productive, and where, technology fits into that, great. If it doesn't, we don't need to add we don't need to create a problem to implement a technology to solve it, if that makes sense. We see that a lot where, especially around AI, it's the hot topic. Everybody wants to do something with AI. So they're kind of creating a problem to use AI to solve. And so we want to be careful of that. We want to make sure we're understanding what the core issues are that we're trying to face and focus on and really innovate around those and not create new problems.
Yeah, I think that this is such an important topic. I get pitched a lot with new technologies in the senior living space, and when somebody comes to me and said, "Oh man, I've got this great new technology," and sometimes you see some stuff that's pretty cool, right? But then you have to ask yourself: is what problem is it really solving? Is it because every time you inject technology, and of course with 50 communities, this means you've multiplied this 50 times over, right? You've got costs, and it's not just the dollar cost, it's the implementation and the infrastructure and all that stuff. And so it's really got to be high value in order to make that worthwhile. Ryan, let's see if we're back in online here. It looks like I can see your head moving, so that's good. Talk to me for a minute and let's see if we get our connection is doing here. Our connection is doing. I think we are gonna, I think the best thing to do right now is we're gonna just wish we could have Ryan work, and Jason, you and I are gonna have the conversation, and we'll do Ryan another time and make that all work. So, where do you think, so it sounds like for you, innovation is more than just technology. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a philosophy in itself, really. We have to look at everything we're doing and how we can improve that. Just how we think about things, I think is innovative in itself, right? Just thinking about a different way to solve a problem, and not having to plug in a piece of technology to do it all the time. If it fits, great. Like you said, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, especially senior focused and healthcare. I'm really interested in some of the health tech that's out there now with, wearables and sensors and all these cool things to track all the, vital signs and health metrics and things like that. I've got a really cool bed that tells me everything I did during the night and how much REM sleep I got and my heart rate and all that kind of stuff. I'm fascinated by that stuff. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there for senior housing and for just everybody really to be able to kind of pull all that information into one place and be more proactive and reactive on, on our care levels and how we can better the lives of our residents by seeing more data and using that data properly. I think that's where kind of AI side of things really is going to help, as we move forward.
Yeah. So I just, for Christmas, I got the Samsung Ring, and I'm trying that out. So, but I've also got a Fitbit. I sort of started with Fitbit early. And for as much money as I've spent on Fitbit, I'm actually not a big fan of the company. I find that the reliability isn't terrific, but I've sort of been hooked. So this may ultimately replace it and make my Fitbit go in the drawer. So where do you think, as you sort of look at this whole innovation thing right now, where do you think the biggest opportunities are in terms of improving senior living? And I'd like to ask this in the context of both residents and team members. So
yeah, I think that's, and that's fair. I think there's definitely conversations to be had on both sides. So I think, as far as what we're doing for our team members, right, I think where innovation and technology and AI especially can help with that are things that can make your life easier, right? Things that can help you be more productive, help you get kind of the more mundane daily tasks done quicker. So then our goal is to provide those tools and then let our staff and our team be able to spend more time with our residents in person, be more time on the floor, not behind their computer, checking emails or writing a job description or whatever that is. If we have AI tools, we, as a company right now, we're kind of starting our implementation of Copilot through Microsoft and finding it really helpful for just saving some time on something that would have taken you 10 or 15 minutes that now can take you 2 minutes, and you have that 12 or 13 minutes to go spend with, a resident or your staff member out on the floor and just get more of that personal time and that personal touch back. So I think that on the staff level, that's kind of really where we're looking at, where AI and innovation can help us is just be more productive, faster, and have more personal time with our residents really. And then on the resident side, I think, kind of what I talked about a little bit earlier with the sensors and being able to kind of do wearables and tie that information into more predictive, more proactive care is I think it's in its infancy right now. Kind of there's some companies that are focusing on that, but being able to pull all that data from those different sources and have the AI algorithms that can tell you, hey, look, these three things that are happening and this pattern that's happening could indicate something's wrong. So, check on that now versus having that thing go wrong and then, being more reactive later. So I think that's something that can really, benefit the senior community moving forward, not just in senior housing, but just in general, and home care and everywhere. So.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to provide better care, to identify challenges. I haven't written the article. It's on my list of things to do while I'm on sort of vacation. But a few weeks ago, there was an article that came out that talked about how they took a group of cases that they gave to three groups of physicians. One, they just read it and then diagnosed it and a treatment plan. The other one, they had AI. An AI robot actually figure out what the problem was. So there was really no human intervention. And the third one was the physicians could use an AI assist to figure out what was going on. And what was really fascinating is in those three scenarios, the one that came closest to getting it right most of the time was the pure AI. Even when the physicians had AI at their disposal, they didn't quite trust it enough to come up with the right answer. Small sample size and those kinds of things. And so maybe I guess the question I have is, when you think about AI, how do you think about sort of the adoption process so that people are actually willing to use it and trust it and those kinds of things?
Yeah, I talk about that a lot. I think I've been to a few conferences this year and just the thing I like to really kind of focus on, what I think is important is kind of is exactly that. It's kind of the ethical side behind it, right? AI can do a lot. It's very powerful. You can trick people into thinking and doing a lot of things using AI, which is another thing we're focusing on, is trying to kind of come up with a cybersecurity training program for not only our staff but our residents too, because they're such a vulnerable population to cyber attacks and fraud and phishing and all that kind of stuff, where we can really focus on training and educating our residents on what to look for, and especially now with AI being so prevalent in the attack vectors of these nefarious actors on the cybersecurity side of things. So I think that's important to focus on as well. So.
Yeah, that part's always really difficult for me because I'm really sold out on the AI. And so sometimes and I assume from a privacy standpoint, I mean, I'm pretty careful about my personal information, but I sort of assume that you can find out pretty much anything about me you want to on the web if you're willing to work hard enough. And that my biggest protection is that my life's not very interesting. And so I don't worry about it very much. But I do think that for a lot of people, I don't want to be too cavalier because I think for a lot of people, that's not the same thing. Ryan, it looks like we've got a different connection. So let's go and see if we can bring you back on and see if it's working, right?
Yeah. I think I can hear you a lot better now. So.
Oh man, this is perfect. So I'm going to actually jump back to earlier in our conversation with you. I'd like to really have you talk to me about this idea of a hospitality-based approach to senior living rather than, I assume, care-based, but maybe something else.
Yeah. So we, from a hospitality perspective, we've got a lot of different signature programs that we call leisure care signature programs, and different things that we feel really set us apart from the competition. One is Travel by Leisure Care, and so that is a program that we take our residents on different trips. Some are regional, some are a little bit more national. Last year we went on a Hawaiian cruise, so we had family members, we had residents, and did a week-long cruise that was escorted. I mean, we cover all the logistics, all the details, and so a lot of times residents will come out and say, my travel days are behind me, but we make it so easy. And then, what's really neat about that is a lot of residents come back and they're excited. They had the time of their life. And so it just gains momentum from there. And like I said, we also have some regional trips as well. So that's gaining even more popularity. And we've got more and more travelers that are taking advantage of that. We've got the MyLC app. I'm not sure if Jason touched on that, which is our app. It's a great platform for us to promote different programs, different things that are happening within food and beverage, and different outings. And so really a big focus on overall experiences. That's a huge part of what I do in my role as the CXO, Chief Experience Officer for Leisure Care. Just really working with people like Jason and our team on the experience side to create really great experiences. But MyLC app really promotes different things and gets more residents and family members involved in the different aspects of our community. Another thing that I think is really great and unique to Leisure Care is we have our own coffee label and our own coffee company called True Cup Coffee, where we take coffee beans, we send it over to Germany and basically pull most of the acid out. So it's senior friendly, and it's something that is different and unique, and our residents love it. And then also, big platform for us is what we call Prime Fit Wellness. And with that, we've got different components that we really focus on throughout the year from a physical, mental, emotional, social, and communal perspective. And it's kind of funny because when we put this program together, it's really a holistic way of looking at resident well-being. And we started watching Blue Zones on Netflix, if anybody's seen that program, and it really dovetails Blue Zones. We didn't know that when we put it together, but just a healthy way of living and creating opportunities for residents if they want that. And more residents want that as they move in, as we continue to evolve in this industry and serve a different generation, different population, what their needs are. And so that's really been a huge hit for us and a big push. So yeah, those are just some of the things from a hospitality perspective that I think sets Leisure Care apart from the competition.
Great. So, how do you so I've got so many questions, but I want to talk just for a minute about this sort of healthy living thing. I I conceptually, I love the idea of healthy living, but I've written about quite a bit. My 91-year-old stepfather who lives with us, and he loves orange juice, and I know he's got high blood sugar, and the doctor's really concerned about it. And I'm sort of like, man, you shouldn't be drinking so much orange juice. And he says, you know what? I'm 91 years old. I got to die from something. Why should I deprive myself of that? So can you talk to me about, I mean, do people really care about this healthy living, or they sort of look at it and say, you know what? I'm going to go indulge.
I think it's a mix. I think, a big part is, I think, creating options. And so, I think the more options that we provide for our residents, and then I think some of it also comes down to education. And so, I think that's just a huge part, of what we want to do. And so, going back to the experience side, and just making sure that we're creating really great experiences, great opportunities for residents to thrive. One of the other big pushes for us, Steve, has been our bistros. Most of our communities have a bistro up front and center in the community, and it really has been a big push for us to enhance that even more, where we, again, going back to that resident engagement, that resident experience side, how do we get more residents plugged in, but also family members who might not have time if they want to come in for a meal, but they don't have time to go into the restaurant, sit down and have a full meal. They can go to the bistro, maybe watch a ball game with mom or dad, have a little bit lighter fare, some appetizers, or we also do a little bit more larger meals as well. But we tend to, in the bistros, have smaller meals, but just make it easy, right? But it's another option instead of the only option we have, from a food perspective is the restaurant. Well, no, for us, we also have the bistro, and it's become a hub. There's happy hours, there's wine tastings, there's all kinds of different things that are happening there. And it's just an easy avenue for residents to get plugged in. But I think to answer your question, on kind of that quality of life, hey, do I want to indulge or do I want to live healthy? So much of it is education. And I think just having those options available. And then, yeah, if somebody wants to have a little bit of a healthier lifestyle, we certainly, I think, do an awesome job with that.
Great. So I told you in advance, and so I'm gonna jump into this right now. As I go into 2025, one of the things that I want to really focus on, particularly as I talk to operators, is collecting stories. I think that I'm going to take it positive. I think one of the great opportunities, the low-hanging fruit that we haven't spent enough time talking about, is how we are actually an industry that radically changes the lives of people. And I see three categories, and I know you've got a couple of stories you're going to share out of these three categories. The first one is just residents who were maybe living at home and not living their best life, right? And moving into a community and living these amazing experiences, these best chapters. The second one is sometimes, not always, sometimes it really has a profound impact on family caregivers. And the third one, of course, is team members who come in. And so I know you got a story. I'd love to hear it about transforming a resident's life.
Yeah. I think this is one that happens a lot in our communities. And but yeah, as I was talking last week with a health and wellness manager who oversees one of our assisted living departments in one of our communities, and said, hey, do you have a story, that's something that happened recently? She said, yeah, we moved a resident in, this resident in assisted living, and set up a great care plan, got the resident involved, engaged, oriented well into the community, and day by day the resident improved and started to thrive. And so those type of things, those are some of the wins that happen, I think, throughout leisure care, and again, I think throughout the industry, right, where somebody maybe is a little bit apprehensive to move in, but they move in, and I think we do a really good job of getting them oriented, getting them comfortable. Obviously, this is one of the biggest decisions that they're going to make in their life. And so to be able to get them plugged in, have a great care plan, next thing you know, they're thriving, they're enjoying life, they're getting what they need, and I think for us, it kind of comes back to that private wellness approach, covering all those bases from a physical, mental, emotional, social, and communal perspective. But then you throw the care part in on the assisted living side for this particular example, and you start to see a resident thrive, and so, yeah, just a good reminder of the work that I think we do, at Leisure Care and again, throughout the industry.
Yeah, I love that. And then what about on the team side?
Yeah, on the team side, one that comes to mind, we've got an employee that came to us from the golf industry. It spent 30 years in the golf industry, and we hired this person as a general manager. And so some people might think, well, that's kind of crazy, why would you hire somebody, from the golf industry, and have them step in into a general manager role? But this person, and it's funny, it was right before COVID, right? So what a time to start, being new to
Yeah.
the industry. But this person came in, and we felt really good about really their approach, their leadership, their heart, we felt was in the right place. So it gave them a lot of really great tools. I think at the time, our operations director did a phenomenal job along with other people from the Leisure Care team to create a really good training plan and give this person a platform to be successful. And the really cool thing, Steve, is that even as we got into COVID and we got into the middle of winter, this is a northern community, north in the U.S. And this community had not been full for a long time, but this general manager was able to lead this community to 100% occupancy in the middle of winter when most people believed, hey, people aren't going to move in when it's 10 degrees outside, and they're not going to move in when there's COVID, but so against all odds, we went to 100% occupancy, and this person wanted to change. They wanted to do something different. They wanted a job that they were going to feel good about. And what we do, we really promote a 3/3 lifestyle. And what that means is, and maybe Jason touched on this, but we want our employees to put family first. We want them to give back philanthropically, and then their job third. And obviously sometimes that doesn't always flow in that order, but that's the goal that we have. And this particular leader wanted that, and it's been a game-changing situation, and they were a little bit later on in their career. It's somebody that was kind of towards the twilight of their career, but the feedback that we get on a regular basis from this person is probably one of the best decisions they've ever made, and they're absolutely thriving. And now they're in an operations leader role, so a regional role overseeing a portfolio of communities, and doing great work. So yeah, so that's a big win, right? And
Yeah, those are the best stories. And I mean, it sounds a little bit like the story that Jason told about his transition from his Las Vegas into the senior living community. So for both of you guys, one of the questions that I hear debated a lot, and I have sort of mixed feelings on it. So I'm a boomer. I'm right smack dab in the middle of the boomer generation. But, there's sort of this sense that the boomers are a very different kind of consumer than prior generations, the silent generation. And I don't know whether I'm sure, as a boomer, I'm wondering, I turned 70 in a few weeks, and I'm not sure that when I'm 80 or 85 that I'm actually going to be that much different than what my folks wanted. So I don't know. Do you have thoughts on boomers and what that looks like and what the future needs to look like? And I'm going to start with you, Ryan, and then Jason, I'd like to tap into you a little bit on this as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think kind of going back to, what you're talking about, as far as kind of the healthy aspect, I think that's going to continue to evolve. And I think, I think personally, I think the expectations for us to perform at a higher level, I think that's going to continue. I think, technology, I think the use of technology, I think that's also going to continue to evolve. And, I think that's where for us with our app, again, that our app continues to evolve and get better and more usage and, more people that are comfortable with it. I think from those components, I do think the expectations are going to change. I think the expectations are going to be higher, and I think we're going to be held to a higher standard. And so I think as operators, it's going to push us to get better, and, I think that's a good thing, so I think, for us, again, kind of going on that hospitality approach that we have, we've got to be hitting on all cylinders. And so when somebody walks in the door, it's got to feel great. That's, again, that's a big push for my team, on how do we create a great first impression? How do we enhance what we believe is an already great culture? How do we take that to the next level? And so when somebody walks in the door, they have that mindset of, gosh, if they've never been into a retirement community, a lot of people still go back to this is an old folks home. But when they can walk in and they say, am I in the right place? Because this doesn't feel anything like an old folks home, and then we say, yeah, you are in the right place, but it's not an old folks home, and so I think for us, I think the expectations with this next generation are going to be higher. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing, and we just have to keep pushing ourselves collectively to just keep getting better. I think that's the goal.
So, Jason, as you look at sort of resident demands, what they're looking at, what they're thinking about from a technology standpoint, what do they want?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, even in the 12 years I've been with Leisure Care, when I first came in from a, pretty high level tech, industry in Vegas, we were doing a lot of bleeding edge stuff in the casinos and the airports and that kind of stuff. So I came in kind of gung ho, guns blazing, let's do this, and quickly realized, hey, look, just because it's shiny new technology doesn't mean it's going to work in senior housing. So that was a quick lesson I learned. But I think, over the last 10 years, we've definitely seen, the emergence of more of a requirement and a need and a want for, stable, consistent Wi-Fi throughout a community so you can have that connectivity. So we're really trying to change the way we think about, the internet and Wi-Fi in general and make it more of a utility, right? It's like power and it's like water now. People need it. They want it. They have to have it to be connected to their loved ones, to do what they want to do, to stream TV, to do all those things. So we want to be able to kind of think about that more as a utility and provide that, as part of the package, and be able to also kind of future-proof our buildings for what's next as far as IoT, and smart home and all the kind of the other things we were talking about earlier with, sensor-based wearables, all that kind of stuff that needs a connectivity, right? It has to connect to something. And
Yep.
So let's make sure our buildings are prepared for that, for the boomer generation and the current as well, because we are seeing more and more of a demand for that now.
So we're about out of time. I'm going to ask one more question here. I'm sort of looking at my list of questions I haven't hit, but I'm going to think I tackle one that is that I hear a lot of is that there's sort of a sense that the current workforce is different, that maybe not as committed. And Ryan, you already talked a little bit about your philosophy, which almost sounds like it meets the newer generation. But are you seeing, the workforce as being, I don't know, less committed or harder to work with, harder to deal with? Ryan, I'll start with you, and Jason, I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on this as well.
No, not necessarily. I think, kind of going back to the expectation thing, I think, everyone's got different expectations. And so, I think for us, it's being selective up front, and just making sure that we do a great job in the interview process. And then from there, it's, doing a great job on the onboarding side, to make sure that, we really are excited and ready for them on day one, do a great job through their orientation to get them oriented and get them excited, but I think overall, each generation is a little bit different, but I think our approach and our philosophy on how we treat our employees is consistent, and so, I think it's just doing a great job. I think it's being excited to see our employees, every day, kind of celebrating the arrival. That's one of the things that we've really kind of focused on. So when they show up at work, we're excited to see them and just treating them the best that we possibly can and make sure that we care about them, that we're talking about, hey, what's your dream job? How do we help you get there? What is important to you? Giving good feedback, and just taking care of them the best that we possibly can. And I think when that happens, and I think Leisure Care does a really good job of that, and we can lower that turnover, everybody's going to win at that standpoint, from that perspective. And so, they might be a little bit different, Steve, but, I think that's our job to figure them out, and get to know them right on a personal level, and again, what matters to them. And I don't think, from an age perspective, that really changes. People want to know that their supervisors, their leaders care about them and just take care of them the best that we can. And when we do that, again, I think that turnover is going to go down. Everybody wins when that happens.
So what occurs to me, I was listening, you're thinking about this, you're talking, I'm thinking, the difference really perhaps is that in prior generations, if I worked for a crummy company, I just would still go ahead and work as hard because that was what I was supposed to do. And perhaps in the newer generation, that if I'm working for a good company like Leisure Care, I'm going to work as hard or harder than I ever have because I'm respected, I'm treated well. But if I'm working for a company that's crummy, I'm not going to work any harder for them than they are going to work for me. And so if you're seeing a generational difference, maybe it's really a suggestion that you got some work to do inside your own corporate culture. Jason, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what Ryan was saying there. And I think, a lot of, especially over the last 5 years or so, with COVID, that really changed the landscape of kind of the employees. And I think not even a generational, difference in that, but just I think everybody started to realize, like, I want to do something that matters and I want to do something I'm passionate about. Right. So like you said, you see a lot of those companies people who are working for a crummy job or doing something they weren't really passionate about. And, COVID hit. Right. And then they kind of reevaluated their priorities a little bit. And so, I think looking at that as kind of an influence on what's happening now too. And to Ryan's point, once we get these people in, let's find the right people. Let's get that orientation banged out and make sure they are prepared to do the job and happy to be here. So I think that's really important for the incoming employment.
Great. Jason, Ryan, thank you so much. Great conversation. And, it's organizations like yours that just give me great hope for our industry because, we are changing the lives. We're impacting the lives, not just of our residents, but the family members and our team members. And these are world changing things and they're super important. And so I appreciate your passion. I hope you have a great weekend and a great New Year's celebration.
Yeah, likewise, Steve. Thanks so much for having us on. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.